Sam Bell is stationed on the moon to oversee Lunar Industries' mining operations. He struggles with isolation until an accident changes everything. I'm being coy about the plot here, but Moon was something of a sci-fi darling when it released in 2009, and we're excited to revisit it. Welcome everyone to the Atomic Cinema Experiment. I am Peter, and joining me as always is David.
I come in peace.
This is a science fiction movie podcast. We get together and talk about a sci-fi movie. It's that simple. And today we are discussing Moon, which won a Patreon vote. Every month our patrons get to vote between 3 movies for one of the episodes, and this is what won this particular vote. Also, just a little footnote here, this happens to be episode 300 of the Atomic Cinema Experiment. What episode did you join on? How long have you been here?
216, somewhere around there.
Oh, so you've almost done 100.
Yeah.
That's not bad. That's a hefty chunk.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take credit for all 300 just to be able to celebrate here, but...
Sure. But yeah, I mean, yeah, obviously Moon came out in 2011. It is the...
2009.
2009, sorry, yes. I don't know why I thought 11. But you're right, 2009. And Sam Rockwell stars in this. Duncan Jones directs. It was his kind of big debut feature. Someone redacted voices a character in it. We'll might bring him up later. Actually, do you know what's so shocking about going back and watching this now? Is how many other faces in this and tiny roles I actually know from other things now, and it's kind of weird. I'm like, oh wait, that's Queen Maeve from The Boys. Oh wait, that's that one girl from Crawl, and that one weird Resident Evil movie that never really went anywhere that they did like a reboot of. Kayla Sculler-Darrow is the person I'm referring to. Plus, Matt Berry and Benedict Wong have tiny roles as well.
Yeah, those, as I was watching the credits, I'm like, oh, hey, Benedict Wong. Oh, hey, Matt Berry. I can't wait to see what they are in this. Because, like, I've seen this movie before. I've had a history with it. But, like, I remember there being those tiny roles. And I was like, I can't wait to actually, like, see them. I don't think I saw a goddamn shot of them this whole time. I think they were entirely just voice characters, if even.
No, you see those two.
You do? All right. Maybe I just wasn't paying enough attention. I did not notice them.
What are you talking about? Of course you see them.
All right.
Were you watching on a VHS with scan lines?
I guess. I was watching without my glasses, so that might be it.
I mean, okay, you don't get a crystal clear HD shot of their face. They're on kind of like sort of broken up video footage, but you can tell it's them. You can hear Matt Berry's voice. You can't mistake Matt Berry's voice. He's got a very distinct timbre.
Apparently I did. I don't know. I don't know what to tell you there.
Jesus. Matt Berry might have the most recognizable voice in like the present day.
Yeah. Okay. It might be, I mean, maybe he was doing like a slightly different thing, but it might be that I was just listening for the What We Do in the Shadows, like that over the top sort of like.
What do you expect him to say? Nadja, I'm in the mood for a wine. Come hither. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Hello, Sam Rockwell. Are you jerking off up there on the moon?
Anyway, so yeah, the premise of this one, obviously we'll start spoiler free. I'll just make that clear. We'll give you a warning before we get into the spoilers. And of course, if you are enjoying the show on YouTube, please do hit the like button or give us 5 stars on the podcast app of choice. And you can support us and get bonus stuff. But I'll tell you more about that at the end of the episode and plug Patreon and all that stuff. So, yeah, premise is quite simple. Sam Rockwell plays a character named Sam Bell, who is working on the moon. He's a one-man crew who's just there to monitor and maintain machines that are harvesting moon rock, basically. There's a quick explanation at the start. Basically, they found a way to extract solar energy from moon rocks. So they're just doing that, and that's the premise. Now, there is a big element to the premise, which I'm not saying, and it was relatively kept secret before the release of the movie, although I think there was one trailer that gave it away. So it's kind of like, do you tell people when you're trying to be spoiler free or not? I wouldn't. I'm pretty sure when I saw this, I went in without knowing the big thing that happens about a third of the way into the movie.
I think that's the ideal way to do it, because it feels like the movie's presenting it that way as well, but it's something to be discovered rather than known going in. Yeah,
and it's not so much that you can't see it coming by the time you get there. I think there's hints that you can pick up on, especially if you know sci-fi stuff, but I don't think you're supposed to go in just knowing it flat out right, kind of thing.
Right.
So I will keep that close to the chest until we get to spoilers. But yeah, no, I mean, when this came out in 2009, I always kind of look back fondly to 2009 for science fiction, because I feel like sci-fi had kind of a big wave, because this District 9 came out, also the first Avatar, and then to a slightly lesser extent, but also kind of a big deal at the time, was the 2009 Star Trek was there as well. It felt like all of a sudden a lot of big sci-fi movies, both like huge tentpole releases and then relatively smaller budget things, because I mean this and District 9 are both relatively low budget. They're not big blockbustery movies, even though they almost punch above their weight in a lot of ways with some of the visuals they pull off. But they're not these big, $250 million, mammoths or anything like that. So I always think of 2009 as being kind of the start of a modern sci-fi wave. As right or as wrong as that may be, but it certainly felt like it to me when I was, just paying attention to movies at the time.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't nail it down specifically to 2009. I wasn't paying that close attention to the exact timeline of it, but it did feel like that late 2000s, early 2010s period had a lot of, I want to say, I guess, an independent sort of feel to it. It didn't feel like everything was this huge, like having to go in with this blockbuster aspect to it. It felt like we were starting to get this wave of smaller creators being able to come in and do something really interesting with it, while still not sacrificing the idea that it looks like a great sci-fi movie at the same time.
Yeah, and it kind of like almost dovetailed into what ended up being like a 3 or 4 year streak of there being kind of like a slightly big budget, prestigious sci-fi movie every like October time. There was like 1 year was Interstellar, 1 year was Gravity, 1 year was The Martian, not in that order, but like they were all kind of roughly in the same time each year. And it kind of felt like almost like to clockwork. You could be like, oh, this is this year's kind of good sci-fi movies coming out around this time in the clock. So no, I really do look back fondly, especially since 2009 I was 20 the year this came out, so I was very much kind of in that like prime of really getting excited about movies and like kind of having the freedom to see and explore whatever I wanted to, and kind of, I don't know, it's kind of all tied to a very specific time in my life and all the rest of it. So I guess with all that said, we'll get into how we feel about the movie now, particularly on this viewing, and if it's changed at all since it came out. But David, what do you think of Moon?
I really like it. I mean, I can nitpick a tiny little thing here or there, but I think that on the whole, it is a fantastically made movie where I mean, not to spoil too much about it, but there is the thing that happens involves a lot of special effects. It involves a lot of very careful, like, camera tricks and stuff like that. And there's so many sequences in this where I can feel them showing off at how good they're doing it. Like, they are particularly doing a choice of shots and the way they're doing things just to show off that they got this nailed. And it works. There is not a single moment in this entire movie where I feel like it doesn't work the way it needs to. On top of that, writing-wise, the way that the characters play out and the way that you emote with them, the way you feel how it is, you get this sense of loneliness that the characters would have being up on this moon base. It's all around, I think it accomplishes what it needs to do. If I have to do one tiny little nitpick about it, it's that there are several sequences that are like out on the lunar surface, and those feel just a little bit cheap at times. Some of it really works, but what gets me is at a certain point, I got in my head, there's no moon gravity here. It's just normal gravity. And at that point, like, I couldn't shake it. But that's the only like tiny little nitpick that got stuck in my head because of it.
I think there's one moment where I definitely felt moon gravity, but like, I mean, generally, I wasn't thinking about it too much. But,
right. Yeah, it's not something. It's not something that impacts the plot. It's not something that's really going to take you out of it. But for some reason, it popped in my head, and I was like, "Oh, that's annoying." Now I see that every time.
I don't know. Everything's just heavy, so there's moon gravity.
Yeah,
it's
They're all wearing lead boots.
I mean, who knows? Maybe it's the future. Yeah, it had a $5 million budget, by the way. I just checked on IMDb.
Okay.
So yeah,
Yeah.
Very low
I mean,
budget. Even like that's like that would have been low even in the 80s. $5 million. That's like kind of a similar budget to the Terminator, which was low budget at the time. In 2009, that's very low budget. So worth pointing that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean the movie is still pretty great. I will say that I don't think I have it quite in the same level in my mind as I did when it first came out. I think when this first came out, I was like, oh man, this is like one of these movies this year. This is, this is like, I had it, I don't like to say on a pedestal, but like it was this exciting, bold, low budget sci-fi movie that feels fresh, it feels different, and it feels like, it's not one of the big budget stuff. It's not one of the big studio movies. And I was really drawn to it at the time. And I think most of the things that made it work back then still work really well. The performance from Sam Rockwell, the music from Clint Mansell's fantastic. Adds a lot of like atmosphere to the movie and a lot of the emotion to the movie. There's a lot of great little things in the script that really work and really pay off. But, I think some of the things that maybe have not held up as well and sort of watching it again this time. Two things spring to mind. One is that there's a couple of like almost like dreamlike moments that I think are kind of lame, and I didn't really remember them from before, even though I'd seen this a few times. I think they're just kind of like really generic, and I think the movie would just be better without them. So I'll critique them more specifically when we get to spoilers. But like I didn't really love those, and I do think that a lot of what this movie has been kind of tried and done in different ways in different movies, different TV shows. And it's not like everything in this is completely original either. There's definitely, some pulls from earlier material as well in this, for sure. But there was just a feeling as I was watching this is still very good. But I don't think it feels quite as special as it did when it came out in 2009. And I don't know if that's just because I've seen a lot more stuff, or it's a lot of stuff's come out since then, or just a couple of little elements feel a little dated, or whatever. But it's still great. It's still great. I think my score at the end of this review is probably going to be at least half a point or a full point less than what I'd have given it in 2009, is all I'm really trying to say.
Yeah, no, I felt that exact same thing. There were so many elements to this that in the preceding decade and a half since it happened, I feel like I've seen so many of these same sort of tropes, these same sort of tricks be done in other movies, sometimes better, sometimes worse, but it definitely lost that originality spark. It definitely lost that thing of this feels unique within its own right.
Which obviously is not this movie's fault, but it does mean that watching it now, it doesn't really matter. It just kind of feels, like I've seen this kind of idea, this idea, that idea. There's a few of them, but like I've seen these done in so many ways at this point that it almost can't rely on just feeling unique for that. It has to actually do it well, and it does for the most part, luckily. But it doesn't quite keep that special feeling that I remember being excited by the plot specifically back in 2009. So that's kind of the one way it's kind of thing. Well, that and obviously just, hearing Kevin Spacey's voice has a bit of a different tinge to it now.
It would be anything if they were to like put any sort of modulation on there or some sort of filter, but it's just straight up directly Kevin Spacey in the sound booth.
Yeah. I mean, there's a little bit of they've got a bit of a sound effect on it, but it's not much.
Not much. It just sounds like he's on the phone, which I don't want to imagine being on the phone with Kevin Spacey.
Better than a Skype call.
Yeah, true.
So yeah, I don't know. Did they specify in this movie when it's set, like year-wise?
I don't know if they specifically say the year or if it's like background material that you can deduce from. I saw online trivia that it's 2032.
Okay, because at one point I thought I saw the year 2026 on a screen, and I thought, oh damn, that's weird because we're right up against that. Yeah. But 2032 is not even that far away either. Like we're a stone's throw away from that year. So it's funny how distant that probably felt in 2009. But it's like, hey, time's caught up.
Yeah, I mean, I will say this is one of those movies where it doesn't feel like it's making any too huge a leap in technology or anything like that. Like, obviously it was only 2032. What would that have been? 23 years.
Yeah.
after the movie release. So it's not like they were saying like, oh, we invented the warp drive and we found all these alien civilizations or whatever. It's like, no, they just discovered that they could get helium out of rocks on the moon, which apparently is a thing. There is helium in the rocks on the moon, but it is just exorbitantly expensive to try to get that.
Yeah, well, that's the real sci-fi. Well, not the real sci-fi, but there's obviously something else going on. But like in terms of that side of it, it's really just like how normalized and relatively easy going to the moon and back seems to be overall.
Yeah, it's the mining stuff in Alien. It's this idea of like, yeah, it seems crazy to us now, but for them, this is just a blasé job that they're totally used to.
Yeah, although it still kind of feels like he's kind of like, you know, they'll have this whole thing where it's like you get a 3-year contract to go up for 3 years, because obviously, while it's relatively easy to do, it still costs a lot of money and resources to go to the moon, so it's like we don't want to be exchanging people every 6 months or whatever, you know, it could be.
Right.
So it's like, no, you sign up for 3 years. That's how long this goes. But yeah, I think, you know, the world building is kind of interesting, you know, because we always just stay on the moon. We never like cut to like, you know, a boardroom in Earth with them talking about what's going on, which I think is the right choice here. Obviously, it also saves money in a lot of ways, but I think it is the creatively the right choice for the tone.
Oh yeah, this entire movie, it's supposed to, I mean, the idea of the isolation is so baked into its core. The idea that the desperation of wanting to get back to Earth. If we were, as an audience, shown Earth constantly, there's no way we would relate as heavily with that sort of ideal. Yeah.
Yeah. So as far as anything else goes, before we get into the spoilers, you know, I mentioned the music. Clint Mansell is very, very good. Yeah. We talked about effects a little bit and how they're pretty stand up for the most part. There's only really one moment near the end that there was an effect shot that made me go, I felt the cheap CG there. But it's just like one moment. It's one moment, and it's not a big deal. So for a movie of this budget, that's quite impressive. And they get away with a lot in the moon surface, because it's like, you get to have this harsh lighting, you get to have this kind of like, you know, almost fake quality because it was meant to be very low gravity kind of thing. Like, you get away with a lot that you wouldn't get away with like a CG shot of like something on Earth, right? You get a lot of leeway, partly because also like it's all just space. It's all just black space in the background as well. So there's a lot of wiggle room in the effects to kind of like get away with some things there. But, you know, that's part of what makes it work. So.
Yeah, I would say I think that I like all the set designs. I like all the way that they have felt that this place is simultaneously a space station that, like, you know, it's clean. They keep this very pristine white sort of imagery to it. But then you also get the idea that it's lived in. You get the idea that this guy has been here for years and has put his own little personal mark on it throughout the space.
Gary, the robot that Kevin Spacey voices, he's like pretty grimy actually. He's clearly not been cleaned very often. Like, so you get the sense that he was pristine at one point, but he's clearly worn down a little bit, and that's, you know, that adds to kind of the realism of it.
Like, he's covered in post-it notes, and a lot of the post-it notes are like even super worn down, so you can't even read what they say.
You can read the kick me though.
Yes,
that was very eligible. So, no, I mean, like, I think there's some nice emotional beats in here. I think the script does some smart things with how it reveals character growth in a way that only a science fiction story with this premise can really do. So that's something that we'll talk about once we get into the spoilers. But I mean, honestly, I don't know, like, because so much of this is something I want to not spoil, we can't really talk about much more of it without the spoiler walls. So
yeah, I mean, I guess would you suggest, regardless of spoilers, that people definitely check this out, or do you think it is more of a taste thing?
No, I mean, I think this, while it might appeal more to science fiction fans on paper, I think this one is pretty accessible to your normies. I think most people should try Moon.
Yeah.
You know,
I'd agree. I think it's even like a good entry spot. Like something like, I don't know, Solaris or whatever is very heady. It's very
that's the deep end. You don't throw someone in there first. Yeah.
This feels a lot more of like, okay, if you know your generic blockbuster sci-fi and you want to take something just a little bit more closer to that Solaris sort of end, this is a good stepping stone.
It's a gateway to it's a gateway to more indie, and I don't know if I'd quite call this art house, but it feels like you're tiptoeing towards the art house by trying this. But it's very mainstream friendly in and of itself. Unless you're someone who just wants action scenes, in which case you can be like, there's no laser beams and I'm bored and blah, 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 blah.
Nothing. There's no action in there. There's one scene that I could technically define as action in this movie, and it is barely that.
Yeah, that's just not what it is. So that's perfectly fine. So we'll say spoilers from this point on. Full spoilers for Moon. You've been warned. We're going to get into it. So the thing that I was kind of alluding to a minute ago when I was saying the script does some smart things is basically we learn a lot about the Sam Bell character, right? And it starts off with him kind of on his own, and he's like nearly the end of his 3-year cycle. Like he's going home in a couple of weeks. Spoiler, no, he's not. And that's
2 weeks until retirement. Things are gonna go well.
The cake is a lie. You know, Joe, it's funny because I brought up the cake is a lie thing. I think we were talking about Oblivion a little bit when you were doing your homework for that, and I think someone commented saying like Portal didn't invent the cake is a lie, and I'm like, I know that's not the first time that concept came up. It just gave it a name. I'm just using the name.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so the point we get at though is that, right, so it has to do some stuff where you get a sense of who his character is, and he's on his own, so he's talking to himself, he's talking to the computer, he's leaving a recording because he can send messages back, but there's no live calls. There's reasons for that, which we'll get to. So all that's happening, and then when the reveal happens that this is a movie about clones, and that effectively, you know, he's here for 3 years, and then he's replaced with the next clone. Once we get into that stuff, and we have the clone who's been here for 3 years, and we have the new clone who is fresh and just woken up as if he's just arrived, and it's very clear that all these clones start from the same memory point, where it's like, they all just think they've just got here, and we continue from there. One of my favorite things about the whole movie, conceptually from a script point of view, is that you basically get to see how he's changed by how the old clone handles situations, or how he gets into arguments with the new clone, and how like the new clone has more of a temper, whereas the old clone is kind of chilled out over these 3 years. He's kind of become at one with himself, and he kind of knows what his own faults are, and you can see a lot of this stuff coming out, and it's a really smart way to reveal who a character is, and that growth has already happened in a way that you cannot do without science fiction. You can maybe show it with time travel. It's time travel or clones. Those are your only options, really, to reveal this in the way that it's revealed.
Yeah. I mean, I will say there's a throwaway line somewhere in the middle where Gertie says that each of the clones has very small differences in genetic copying just because of mistakes or whatever, and that can lead to differences in personality. But yeah, it does feel like the movie is projecting it as an idea of the hot-headed new one and the old sagely wiser one.
I think when Gertie says that, though, I think that's more about just explaining why he has to go through all the testing when he wakes up. It's like, we're checking for anything that's too much of a anomaly, anything that's too weird. But any slight deviations
this guy has
are okay.
3 eyes. Yeah, we can't really get away with that one.
He's going to be wondering where that third eye came from. Yeah. So I think that's the kind of the real meat of the movie in terms of its storytelling. And then obviously there's some big emotional moments later on, but just to go back to the start and actually sort of look at it, you know, through the way it tells its story. You know, we start off with an explanation of this future world, which we already kind of covered, right? We're mining stuff on the moon, simple as that, and we're introduced to Sam Bell. Do you like all the titles being angled so they're in alignment with things in the set and the scenery?
I more so am happy with the drop shadows. I like the fact that they are making them feel like they are very much involved in the sequence. Yes, them being lined up makes it feel like that more, but like that little extra nugget of the drop shadows. And then there's one shot where he's exiting the lunar base, and as he's about to like turn in front of a title, it just fades out. So it doesn't actually have to show whether it's in front of him or behind him. And then another one pops up where he just was. And I'm like, see, that's someone like forward thinking a little bit, or at least the title person is sitting there going like, oh, I can make this work.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it looks neat enough. It kind of feels like the I don't know if you remember when we did Panic Room, they had the big massive version of this in the city where it was the giant letters, and I'm like, this feels like, okay, no, we're not going to be that up our own ass, we're just going to have a nice little subtle like depth effect just to give it a sense of space. And
it felt to me like they got to post-production, they still had a good $5,000, and they're like, let's do something cool.
I feel like they had to have the editor or the title person, whoever's doing this, anyway. I don't know if it cost them more specifically. Maybe they paid for an extra day because it took a little bit more programming or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah, so we get introduced. He goes out and fixes the machines, that kind of stuff. Simple. We see that he's got a beard, his hair's grown out a little bit, and there's a few little things here that I quite like from a character building perspective. And the performance from Rockwell really sells it. Is, when he's leaving a message and he's like thanking for the football game they showed him, it almost felt live. But he kind of like the way he kind of goes, but 3 years, I've been talking to myself a lot. I've been up here a long time. It's it's time to go home. And he says it in this sort of way that feels very healthy, where he's like, he's really like, he's looking forward to going home. He's aware that he's been up here for so long. And there's no like weird undertones to it yet, because even though we are like, oh, it's a movie, this isn't going to happen. But he doesn't know that yet. There's no reason for him to suspect anything yet. So it's very kind of chill and introspective. And it kind of already sets up this idea that he's put a lot of thought into what he's been doing up here. And like, and obviously it establishes that he's got a wife, that he's got a daughter who seemed to have been born maybe like just before he came up here.
I wouldn't even say just before. I have a feeling that like 9 months into this trip, he was told, hey, by the way, you got a kid.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I think is a question for this premise, actually, once we get to like the clone stuff, is did the original Sam Bell do the first shift and actually go home, or was it just a case of no, from the very start these were clones? And the reason why I think maybe the first shift was real is because all these messages they've got to play from the wife that she was sending up, and obviously they send them up to every clone at the right time each time. Every cycle, okay, it's day 102, send this message you sent, kind of thing. It feels like either they went to a lot of effort to fake all those and had her record all these messages, or there was an original run where it was really like real correspondence. It was the real messages to the real person.
Yeah, it got really awkward when there was a clone. Clone number 8 was calling down saying, hey, wife, look, send nudes. Like, send nudes. I need it now. And then she responded with like I really enjoyed your last message. It was very heartfelt.
Yeah. So that would lead me to think that there was an original shift with the real person, almost as if just to like prep the base and understand like what the clones would have to do. Almost like he has to go through the experience once so they can program everything that needs to be done for all these shifts going forward.
Yeah, for me, it wasn't a question that, because there is the reveal later on that there is a Sam Bell down on Earth that was shown much later on in the movie.
Well, yeah, obviously. I mean, that's not a question. Like, we're told outright the real Sam Bell's on Earth by the end of the movie.
Yeah, I guess my question that I was more curious about is when the first Sam Bell was doing it, did he know that it was just going to be like this was it, and they were prepping to then follow up with clone after clone after clone?
Oh yeah, that's another valid question. Is he complicit in this? Does he know he's been cloned? Is he like the mastermind behind the cloning, or is he someone who's just been used to be like the guinea pig for this? Yeah. Is he aware that there's clones up here on the moon when he's down there on Earth? That is a good valid question. But so we interest this stuff. We see him get his hair cut, and like he trims his beard and shaves it all off because he's got another message. Even though it's not a live call, he's not even like getting a live call, but because he's getting a message from the wife, he's like sitting down and he's like, no, I'm going to look pretty for this. I'm going to like feel good about getting this. So and they also established that the reason why there's no live calls is because some satellite is broke, which is not true. Of course, later on we find out that intentionally that's cut off because they can't have the clones calling back, especially since in the clones' minds it'll be whatever year he went up there originally, right? So if they call down and all of a sudden like, wait, why? Because we actually have a kind of a way to gauge it because of the daughter. We can tell that about a decade or so has passed since the original probably ended his shift So
Yeah, I think they specifically say, like, right at the end. I can't remember what number it was. I think they say that, like, the one that came down was clone 6 or something like that. Like, it hasn't been that
right.
many, but
Yeah.
but on over the point of like 3-year time spans over and over again.
I mean, that's actually too many, but there's always the chance that a couple of them ended early because of accidents, because that's technically what almost happened here with our main clone, right? Is he crashed his lunar buggy and like was like, oh, he's dead, we'll just launch the next one. Oh no.
Yeah, whatever.
And I do appreciate though that when that happens, right, that clearly Gertie's trying to keep the new one contained to the base until people can get here and like go and clean up the old one. Like they're trying to actively stop him from finding the other clone. You know, that's what the protocol clearly is.
So that's actually it's something that I think is not unique to this movie, but I do think it's, again, one of the things that it feels like this is one of the first ones that did it, where you get this vibe early on that Gertie is complicit. Gertie is the Hal of this movie. And then over the course of the movie, it's actually revealed like, no, his primary objective is to keep Sam safe. And so while sometimes that seems to be complicit because he's trying to protect like the mental health of Sam, on the other side of things, he's willing to do things that actually do help Sam accomplish larger goals against the company. And because of that, as a character, I like Gertie. I think he's a very well fleshed out sort of robot AI character.
I think I almost wish they kind of committed a bit more to it. Like, not that I'm saying I wanted to go down the full hog of like, oh, he's become sentient and is choosing to do the right thing because he's a good now or something. But it did kind of feel like they were trying to pull on those heartstrings a little bit with a couple of moments where he does like step in and help. And I think, you know, it could have just been a little bit more developed than what it is. It's maybe like one of the things that I think feels a little lesser in the movie compared to the things that are really great, I guess is what I'm getting at. But anyway, actually, the reason why he crashes though is because he's having a vision of his grown-up daughter, I think. That's what it looked like. It was hard to tell.
Yeah,
it was a woman. It was definitely a woman at the very least. But
if you're thinking about it from the context of like the movie and like how they say he has memories and stuff like that, it shouldn't be the daughter because that doesn't make any sense. But
no, but
it kind of has to be.
But he does see his daughter before. That's not the first time he has a vision. He has a vision when he gets his hand burned because he's looking over at the TV. And like, I'm pretty sure it's the teenage daughter sitting there. And I think what the movie's, I guess, like loosely hinting at here is that there is some kind of, on some sort of like other plane or psychic level, there is a connection between all the Sams, like because they are the same person, and something is bleeding through to him that's hinting that something's not right here. And it happens to the new clone as well, because the new clone has the nightmare where he's with the wife in bed, and like the old clone's in his astronaut suit crawling up the bed saying, "Help me!" And that's the stuff I don't like. I actually dislike this ghost sort of stuff. That, I mean, it's obviously just visions, but like I don't like it because it feels hokey compared to everything else in the movie. And I didn't remember it. Like, I'd completely forgotten this stuff was here. The first time he looks over and sees the daughter sitting there, I'm like, I don't remember this. What's this bullshit? And I think part of the reason why I don't remember it is because it does kind of just disappear. Like, once the two clones have met each other, it mostly just fades away.
Yeah, it definitely feels like it should have been something that the original clone, as he got sicker, it became more and more prevalent. It became like this almost late stage dementia sort of thing where like he's seeing things that just aren't there more and more. But you're right, it does just disappear. And I agree for the most part that I think it's hokey. I do think that the shot that the second clone has of showing like the astronaut underneath the sheets inside of this like memory / dream of his wife, I think that's a really solid shot, and I'm glad they had it, even if the context is just a little hokey.
I see what you're saying. I just don't like the concept of him having this dream. Like, I don't... Like, I get that they want to give him an extra little bit of drive to go and find out what's going on outside, because he's got these suspicions that he's been kept here, and he wants to go explore. I just wish there was another reason other than, I have a psychic feeling that there's something out there to find, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like the movie, if you were to completely cut out that scene, I think the movie does a good enough job of showing that this one is the firebrand. This one is the one that is a lot more like hot-tempered and wanting to get going. So I think without that shot, it still would have worked. And
again, I think the previous clone was also that when he first started. I think that's to me, that's the point, is that like they all start like this, and he's like determined, so he sabotages something to make an excuse to go outside and fix something, and Gertie doesn't like it. Gertie's like been told to keep him inside, and he's also caught Gertie talking to it in a live conversation briefly. But there's a lot of little details here that are nice, like, you know, when he first gets up off the table after he's been woken up, you know, he struggles to walk because his muscles have never been used before, so he's like, you know, stumbling over and he's hitting his leg, and it makes sense that he would be struggling with that. But obviously the real meat of the movie is once he goes out and finds the original clone, who is alive, so it's not been that long, right? He was sitting there in his spacesuit, you know, out there in the buggy, and he brings him back to base, and obviously he's weirded out. And I think, you know, a lot of the movie really is like their first like several interactions together, and like, you know, who is this guy? Like, he doesn't even say, who's this guy that looks like me? Who is this person? Why is he here? What's going on? And Gertie's just confused and says, that is Sam Bell. Who am I? You are Sam Bell. Gertie, you're not making much sense here.
I love when he first wakes up. Gertie basically calls him out and says, like, hey, you crashed the thing. And he's like, I saw someone out in the rubble of the ship or whatever. Like, I saw someone out there. And then he looks over and sees the other clone, and he's like, Gertie, is there someone in the room with us right now? Because obviously he thinks he's seeing things, and Gertie's just like, go to sleep. We'll talk about this later. This is a little bit much for you to take in right now.
Yeah, one of the things they sort of do to kind of keep you faking out before we get to the reveal of the two of them is that when the new clone wakes up, and it's sort of presented like he's waking up after the accident, as if somehow he's been brought back by robots or whatever. And because the cover story, whenever they wake up a clone, is that he's had an accident when he arrived, and that's why he's concussed and he's a little bit out of it. But in the context of the movie for the audience, it feels like it's almost trying to trick us into thinking, oh, he's talking about like this accident that we just saw him have, not some made up accident they always say he's had when he wakes up. So they're kind of playing, but obviously some details, if you're paying attention, he doesn't have a bandage on his hand from the burn that he got earlier because he's new. He didn't get that. So, you know, there's those details there.
I mean, I would even point out the idea that there's, as far as we see, there's no way for anybody else to leave the base. So the idea that somehow he got back into the base is like, well, how did that happen?
Yeah, it's a bit of a mysterious element up until you get the explanation. So, yeah, here's a question. Why is there a ping pong table here when there's only meant to be one person the entire time?
Because he's, you see him fold up the one side of the table and hit it against that. Like, you could still technically do that. Why are there two paddles, though? That's the real question.
Just spares in case one breaks, I guess. I mean, that's, or you lose it. Or part of me was thinking,
they also do have two spacesuits. We saw that as well. They have two suits as they're leaving. Maybe this is just leftovers from before they did the clone stuff, when they actually did have multiple people.
No, to be fair, I think having multiple spacesuits, if anything, I expect there's another rack of 10 under the seat, because like, why wouldn't you have spares of those? He's in space. What if the main one he uses breaks and he's only got one? That is the most stupid thing ever.
Look, the company is the opposite of Jurassic Park. They will not spare any expense.
Yeah, but they wanted to keep their money train coming. They need the rocks from the moon. They need the helium. True. So like there's one thing they'll do is they'll make sure he can keep working. So they'll have you know, they've got multiple buggies, they've got multiple spacesuits. They're going to have all that in surplus, right?
Yeah, true.
So. Yeah, so anyway, so he's playing ping pong. I also thought, does Gertie play with him? Can Gertie hold the bat? He's got that mechanical arm that goes around independently, you know?
I have to imagine every clone would at least try. They're just like, come on, Gertie, it's 20 love, here we go.
Yeah, anyway, so you've got that. We get this sense that, again, older clone's been doing all these models, although he kind of implies that he's only added to it over time, but there was already some here before him. But it's like the town he grew up in, so it's like, well, who started building this town that, you know, it means something to you personally, kind of thing. So that's also another hint that, everyone before us has also just been a clone of Sam Bell, and we're constantly... And a lot of the middle of the movie is like, the new hotshot one is like, hey, we're clones, accept it, you idiot. And he's like, no, I'm not a clone, you're a clone. And like, we get a little bit of that. But also this idea that he immediately wants to try and like prove it and find like, where's the secret room of the clones? Where's this happening? To the point where it causes conflict, and they end up fighting a little bit. And but notably, the old clone it gets a little too hurt from like, is it because once they have their little fight and he's coughing up blood, he's like, wait, I barely touched you. That wasn't like a serious fight. Like, why are you? It's such bad shape, and it becomes kind of clear at this point, like it feels like he's breaking down, and you could maybe read it as, oh, is this because of injuries he got when he crashed? But obviously I think most of us are probably going to start thinking this is the intentional lifespan ending of the clones.
The contract is 3 years. The planned obsolescence is 3 years and a week. Like, there's no way you're getting past that.
I would argue not. I think they've timed this out perfectly, because like he was clearly going to be done by the time his 3 years was up, because he still had 2 weeks to go at the start of the movie, and it's only like a day or two. Right. So
yeah,
I think they've timed it so there'll be like a week maybe, give or take, where there's one dead, and then. Well, actually, no, there won't be, because they'll just wake up the new clone as soon as the old one's gone. They literally just have to sweep the old one away. Out pops the new one. Yep.
And I do want to point out there's one bit that I like with the new clone, that even before like the dream sequence, even before all this other stuff, it's a mistake on their part, of like the company's part, is that he stumbles out of bed and he sees Gertie having a live stream with the people back home, like a live call back and forth.
And that's Matt Berry. That's Matt Berry and Benedict Wong.
I thought it was Benedict Wong. I didn't see Matt Berry there, but fair enough.
Yeah.
But that was, I like that being that this isn't something of like, space psychic or whatever like that. This isn't something where all of a sudden one is just a little bit more inquisitive. It's them messing up. And that leads to this chain reaction of, well, now I have to question, Truman Show style, I have to question my entire reality.
Yeah, he's mistrusting because of that. That's his little seed that can fester, which is why we don't need the stupid dream. Right?
Stay tuned for the Pete cut of Moon. It's just 15 seconds shorter.
Yeah, maybe 30 seconds, but not by much. It's unfortunately we still have to have him crash in the first place, and that still has to have him see a woman standing on the moon. Unfortunately, that has to kind of be there, but whatever. Anyway, so like all this stuff is legitimately pretty good. They kind of get to talking about why can we have live calls, why can't we have live calls, and they even kind of deduce, well, if there is a live call, because eventually, the new one says, hey, I caught Gertie having a live call. He's like, that's not possible. The satellite's down. He's like, yeah, well, they clearly don't want us talking to Earth, so they must be blocking it. And I've been on the base for 3 years. I've never found any evidence of that. Well, they must be blocking it outside the base. And, that leads to them going out in the buggies, looking for what ends up being these big pylon things that are in a circle around the base at a distance to jam any live signal, which presumably Gertie can turn on and off at will, or the company can, so they can start a call. But
that was the bit that like writing wise kind of confused me, is them saying that the live stream stuff is down and it's these pylons that are responsible for it, but Gertie can make a call whenever he wants. And that's the sort of thing where it's like, well, then just like ask Gertie, because Gertie's very clearly willing to help you out on a lot of this stuff. So it just seemed like a little bit of a plot hole for me of why was Gertie able to make the calls with the pylons still being there? If he had the ability to shut them down, then...
Well, I don't think so, because I think the easy answer is, well, it's not him that's turning them off, it's the company. Like, I mean, it's not that unrealistic to think they can just turn off their function to make a call and then turn them back on.
No, yeah, that's fair. I guess I didn't assume that, like, the company would know to turn it on or off. I guess Gertie would, like, send a message to Start and say, like, hey, we need to talk, turn off the blocker real quick, and then he just makes a live stream.
Yeah, because Gertie probably, like, because the messages obviously that Sam sends never actually go to Earth, so there's no, like, context for how long it actually takes. Gertie probably can just send a quick text and they're like, all right, turn the thing off, let's have a chat. We need to talk to Gertie.
Yeah. There was one other bit as well, and God, I can't remember what it is. Oh, the one bit, they keep on showing it throughout the movie, but I do like this idea that when he says it's his 2-week deadline's coming up, they show at least some method of him keeping time is drawing little, like, smiley faces on one of the walls. And at that point earlier in the movie, it's no big deal. You think like, oh, okay, that's just him keeping track of time. But then as soon as the clone thing gets introduced, you're like, oh, that's the representative of all the different versions of that have been here over that period of time.
Yeah, also, he gets woken up with his alarm clock to Chutney Hawkins' I Am the One and Only. Now, I don't know if that song was a hit in the US, but...
I know it, so...
Yeah, it was a one-hit wonder, at least in the UK. And you know, the guy did it, never went anywhere, never had another hit song ever again. But that was a one-hit wonder, and obviously here it's kind of a joke because he's not the one and only. That's the entire point of the movie. But... yeah, Duncan Jones liked this so much that it actually shows up in his next movie source code as well.
Does it?
Yeah.
I've seen source code once. I need to go back to it.
Yeah. Well, we'll do it in the show at some point.
All right. Fair enough. The only other thing plot-wise is all of this time, once Gertie has the live stream with the company, we get the ticking clock of it's like 48 hours or something like that until the rescue team shows up. And when the rescue team shows up, they will... clear out what they're expecting to be dead body, get all the wreckage cleared out, and allow him to go back out.
And of course, they have the realization at some point, right? It's actually, I think it's the old one that eventually has this realization, or maybe it's the young one, I can't remember, but it doesn't really matter. One of them says, you realize that once they find two of us awake, they're not going to let us live, right? They're just going to wipe the slate so the next clone can wake up, right? This is a countdown to them coming. And to be fair, when we see a glimpse of these guys at the end, they are holding weapons. Like, they're coming in with guns in case there's something to do with them. So, like, clearly there's a malicious intent. Maybe it doesn't seem malicious on their end, because they're just coming to deal with what the company's ordered them to do. But, you know, it is what it is.
Yeah.
It's, you know, all that kind of thing. So, all this is good stuff. Like, seeing them interact with each other, seeing the differences between them. I love especially seeing the young clone kind of get apologetic after the fight. And saying, you know, I got a little hot-headed there. And this ties in again with some of the messages from the wife, where the wife was like, hey, you need some time alone. I think it's been good for you. And I think we kind of see that play out with the two clones, which is kind of a nice bit of character writing.
Yeah.
So,
and I mean, this entire time, I really do just want to point out, like, the ping pong sequence.
yes.
It's not them just standing there talking about how they're going to play ping pong. They're actually playing ping pong. And
Yes.
it is very impressive visually. Because you know it's an unbroken shot, but you know that there's special effects going on there. But they do a great job of just throwing out tiny little things that if you're thinking about it from a computer special effects sort of thing, like one of them throws their paddle like onto the other person's side of the table. So immediately in your mind, you're like, oh, so it's not a split screen. We're not doing like an exact straight down the middle cut there. It has to be more complicated than that. And they keep on doing this over and over again between the fight scene, there's a sequence where they specifically are like fixing each other's like hair up and like one asks for a high five. They keep doing this stuff that you think you have a grip on. Oh, I know how they probably do this. And then they say, nope, it's some other way.
Yeah, and the high five thing's particularly notable because it comes back around when they first bring up, like, hey, do you know we've got a daughter? Because he's the old one speaking to the new one, and he's like, yeah, I know about Eve. He's like, hey, well, we did that. We've got that in common at least. High five. And then the young one doesn't, give him the high five. Like, he's not ready to be a thing yet. But towards the end of the movie, when they've bonded a little bit more, and they talk about seeing grown-up people, let's say grown-up 15, older Eve, they say, I think it's the young one who says, hey, she's beautiful, we did that, high five. And he sort of like initiates the high five, which the other one accepts. So it's like a nice little simple visual moment of showing that they have come to terms with each other and they're now working together. It's simple little things like that make it all click. So the big stuff that I really like, though, is when it gets into the idea that a lot of the heart in the middle of the movie is the old clone kind of been the one to break down as he sort of slowly realizes how true this all is. Because not only is it like, okay, there's a clone, and that's making me feel weird, but he still thinks he's going home in 2 weeks. Yeah. He still has that belief. And that gets stripped away little by little, right? Obviously, the big climax of it is when he goes to make the call outside, and that's provoked by events beforehand. And there was teases of this early on, actually. There is a moment at the start of the movie where he's like doing like a log or something, and like one of the old logs from the previous clones like plays on the screen for a second, and he's like, what the hell was that? And he just kind of like hand waves it off, but It's kind of like a hint of like, oh, something's afoot here. So obviously, right, we have a variety of things here. Now, does he go out and make the call before he finds out about the secret room? I think he does. Does he? Or is it...
Yes. So the order of events is they want to drive out past the pylons. Well, they want to see what's out past the grid that they're on. Turns out it's the pylons.
Yeah.
And then he comes back because he starts getting really sick. And when he comes back, that's when he looks up the previous clones footage, and like Gertie gives him the password,
and they're all getting sick.
And they're all getting sick. And then we get the bit of the
before you
finding the room, and then it goes to the daughter call.
Before we go any further, though, let's point out that Gertie, by this point, has already openly admitted they're clones, because he just asks them, and Gertie says, yeah, like when a new clone like needs to be woken up, they're told this story. They'll be like, you remember what I told you when you woke up? And he's like, yeah. So he's already done that. And then when he's wanting to get into all this footage of the previous clones, he needs a password, and his password's not working because he's not really supposed to access that. But after a few attempts, the robot arm from Gertie just comes in and types it in, and it's this little sweet kind of on you go moment.
Yeah, and later on, he specifically asked Gertie, it's like, why did you help me? Like, isn't that against your programming? He's like, no, I am programmed to help you, and that's what you wanted to do, so that's what we did.
It feels like they're going for the idea that the robot is inherently good because it's kind of it's almost intentionally found a loophole so it can help him, as opposed to like it's not like they've programmed them incorrectly. It's like the robot's just found a way around their rules on a technicality.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's the end of the movie without saying exactly what happens. He's like, look, this plan isn't going to work. I've been recording this whole thing. I mean, unless someone were to wipe my footage, but who's going to do that?
I mean, you say it like that, but he doesn't even put that tone on it. He just straight up says, do it. Like, he's very blunt about it. Like, just erase my footage and my memory. I'll reboot. It's not a big deal. Off you go. Good luck on Earth kind of thing. Obviously, this makes him break down because now he's realizing, oh shit, this is real. They don't get to go home. They're just cremated in the box. The box that's supposed to be this will send me back to Earth is actually will put you to sleep and then set you on fire. And there's even a moment where he's looking at the ash out the back. There's like a little like screw or something, and there's like ash sort of leaking out of it. And I'm like, that's past Sam's like ashes is what that is. That's dead Sam's right there.
That's so I know that it's a thing of him like not looking too closely at it, just doing his job, doing whatever. But I do like that bit where it shows the footage. It shows all these people like, I'm going home today. And they get in the pod, and then flash of light goes that. He goes and checks out the pod. They get a whole video thing of like, welcome to the cryogenic pod. We are going to be sending you home super soon. So just close your eyes, relax, and everything will be peachy keen. And then all of a sudden, they're turned into ash. But that's the one bit of like, that ash must have been there for at least 3 years. And he just never bothered to go in there and check. Like, he was just like, whatever. It's not a big deal.
I mean, would he have any reason to go into this room?
No, probably not.
Before he's meant to leave, I mean, I guess. I don't know.
There's a difference between any reason and being so bored and isolated out of your mind that you're just exploring every nook and crevice that you can possibly find in this place.
But would you leap to this ash is dead people ash?
No. But at the very least, he'd be like, huh, that's weird, sweep it up.
Because it's not a lot as well, to be. It's like a little bit of residue, effectively, that's just leaked out this little area, and that's it. It's not like a big pile or anything like that. So... But he finds a trap door that leads down to where all the clones are stored, and there's a whole big wall of them, and there's clearly a few pods that have been used, and the rest are all full. And it's like, okay, and when the young clone gets back, he says, hey, I found the secret room. They go down, they see all this, and it's like, this is a big deal, blah 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 blah. And when this is happening, after this is kind of what ultimately provokes him to grab this little like tablet like device with a keyboard,
laptop thing,
but it's kind of bulky, like something that's built for like to durability, like, oh, this can get beat around a bit and still work. And he like goes out on the buggy, and he takes it out, and he drives past the pylon, so he's outside the range of the block, and he makes a call to Earth. This scene is kind of the heart of the whole movie, because and it's so good because it's like, okay, he makes this call. and this just teenage girl pops up on the screen, and your mind's already
he covers up his camera. He covers up his camera at the last second, like he chickens out from being actually seen. He's just like, never mind.
Yeah, because she even says, "Oh, there's something wrong with the camera. I can't quite see you." But he is like, immediately we see this girl, and we're like, okay, the audience, I think, will largely go, "Oh, I bet we know who this is. This is probably the daughter grown up," and it gives you a sense of the time frame since the first clone or the first Sam or whatever. And then the conversation's not even that long. He's like, "Hey, is this the the Bell residence?" And she's like, "Yep, that's right." And he's like, "Oh, I'm looking for was her name Tess? I'm looking for Tess Bell." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, she passed away a few years ago." And he takes a moment to process that. He's like, "Oh," he doesn't know what to say, and he's caught up. And the acting here from Sam Rockwell is very, very good. And then he eventually kind of is like, "Are you sure?" Which is kind of a weird question, but. So thus far, he's not said anything that suspicious. It just kind of sounds like, oh, this is an old acquaintance who they've never heard. And it's kind of like sad that she has to tell him this news. But then he's like, "Are you sure?" And she's like, "Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm her daughter." And then he kind of gets he chokes up a little bit, and he's like, oh, sweetheart, can you? And he stumbles. He doesn't know what to say, and he kind of he freezes a little bit, and then he finally hits out with the question. I think it first says, "Oh, how old are you now?" And she's like, "Oh, I'm 15." But then he stumbles out eventually the question, "Oh, how did Mummy die, sweetheart?" And that phrasing is just too, weird. If you didn't know this was your father, that phrasing is just too intimate.
Well, I don't even think it's that. I think yes, it weirds her out a little bit, but I think the bigger part for me here is that you can see through the acting, he fully believes that his daughter has been left alone. That the mother is gone and he's not there, and therefore she's left all alone, which makes the next line that much hard hitting for him.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously if he had time to pause and think about it for 5 minutes, he probably would start to speculate what was about to be revealed, but he doesn't have time for that. He's only just found out that his wife is technically dead, right? She's been dead for some time. He's processing that his daughter's actually 15 now, that all this time has passed, which is just further hitting home this idea that we've been clones, that we've been up here for some time, and this isn't really his life, even though it feels like it is. And when he says that, and it's such an intimate phrasing, and because he's asking about the dead mom, the daughter gets a little freaked out and just turns her head and says, "Dad, someone's asking about Mom." And you even hear his voice say, "Who's asking about Mom?" And he can't even wait to talk to the real Sam. He just he turns it off and throws it away. He's like, "Oh, I can't do this. I can't have this conversation." He just has a panic attack.
He's just like, "Oh, that's enough. That's enough. I oh God."
And then he starts crying and says, "I want to go home." And we cut to an exterior shot of the buggy. The camera pans round to reveal Earth up in the sky. And it just shows how far he is away from home, and it's just this scene makes the whole goddamn movie. It's this sequence, right? This is the sequence that does it.
It's so weird because obviously this section, implicitly, because she calls out to the dad and says, "Hey, Dad," it does involve the clone stuff, but this really isn't that leaning too heavily on the fact that he is a clone. This is just a hard-hitting scene because of the acting and the emotionality of it. You could easily get the same sort of thing with a time travel plot or anything like that, like you said, but it's so much the core, the heart of the movie, that it just works regardless of any other thing going on at that moment.
I mean, I think it's 50-50 almost in a way, because you have the emotion of it, which works completely on its own, and then the reveal that no, not only are you not going to go back to your family, your wife is dead, and you're not going to go back to your daughter, the real person existing, the real Sam being down there with her, just means that you're not him. That the last shred of hope that you're the one that matters, that you actually had this life, and that you will ever get to continue it in some way. It just makes that line, "I want to go home," so much sadder because he's never been there. He's never been on Earth. He's never had those experiences. But it just kind of points out how monstrously evil this is, what the company is doing to these clones.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And it made me think of there's a bit of Severance in this. I can see how you could relate some of these ideas where this is effectively a bunch of innies, to put it in Severance terms, who keep being rebooted inside the moon base, That's kind of the similar idea almost.
Yeah, I mean, it comes down to this idea. I related it back to Truman Show. This idea that these higher up people feel that they have ownership over this human being and they are allowed to do whatever they want because he's essentially the product, not the employee. And it's just messed up no matter how you view it.
Yeah, again, it goes back to that question. Does the real Sam Bell, does he know this is happening? Is he complicit in it? Is he evil because he's allowing this to happen? Or is this something that's been done without his knowledge? And if so, will he be sympathetic to these people and like what they've went through kind of thing, you know?
Yeah, that's kind of something I wish they would have tapped on a little, because they never show Sam back on Earth. But what they do at the very end is give some like radio broadcasts of some reactions to it happening. And I kind of wish one of the broadcasts would have been like, the original Sam Bell declined to comment or something like that. Just anything to say, give a hint as to what his ideals are.
That would have been fine because that has still left it open, but I do think it should be left open. Like, I like that it isn't like a solid answer. We don't know what his involvement or what he thinks about it is. Like, you assume that he has a history in like the back, because like, at one point it's actually the moment where they've concocted the plan and they've driven back out to where the crash site was originally to put the original Sam, the clone, back where he was crashed, so that when the the teams show up, they'll find his dead body where they're expecting it. He doesn't actually die. We see that he's still kind of awake just long enough to see like the new clone like fly to Earth.
Yeah.
You get that shooting star style moment, but it kind of feels like he's died in the moment. And it's almost like I won't say he's completely faking it, but he's almost letting himself go to sleep and to let the new clone let him go. It's like, hey, you can go away now. You can put me where you need to put me, and I'm done. But that moment where he chooses to effectively die with him, it's when they're reminiscing about how they met their wife, and they're talking about how, she was an intern, and then like, I gave her the job. It's funny because they do actually mention she's Irish in this scene, but I don't really think I remember her having a strong Irish accent in the video calls. But the actress is Irish. That's a true thing.
Yeah, so I don't know. It didn't stick out to me either. You're right.
Yeah. But the young clone is reminiscing, saying, I called her and asked her to go out for ice cream, and she said, let's get a drink. And then he looks over and the old clone is passed out, maybe even dead at this point. And I thought, it's actually kind of sweet he didn't have to die alone, and he got to die hearing like a fond memory, as much as it wasn't a real memory. But it does suggest a few things. It suggests like whatever Sam's job was on Earth before this stuff all started, it probably was something relatively important that was tied to like what he's doing up here now, and in that industry at the very least. So I think that's a cool little tease. And then, like I say, the sweetness of like him getting to like go out to a good memory and not be alone because he's with his clone is kind of sweet.
Yeah, I feel like if you get to a more core theme of this movie, it does come down to like the importance of what we do for our fellow man and what we do for each other and stuff like that, where we start off this movie just in pure isolation. The idea is that he's doing this work that is literally saving every single other person down on Earth, but he's essentially trapped in a hell without even realizing it. And then once we get this introduction of somebody else, they start off very rocky. They start off fighting with each other, and we get this slow evolution to show how much these two, I mean, obviously they're clones, but how much they do really have in common, how they share these memories, how much it is there. And I feel like if you broaden that out a little bit, you get this idea of similarity amongst all common men and stuff like that, and how we owe it to each other to do the right thing for each other. Because we skipped over the plan here, but the plan is they wake up the new clone, another new one, in order to put his body in. The second clone is going to stay on the base and pretend like he's just the one who was here, and then the dying one's going to go back to Earth. But the dying one is too far gone. He realizes that he knows he's not going to make it, so he decides, I'm going to be the one that goes into the ship. You go back to Earth, and we'll leave the new one that we're waking up to take over the base for the people coming in, so they won't even have a reason to kill him or anything like that. And that idea that the one who came up with the original plan was the new clone. It was the one where he was going to send the other one back, give up his entire idea of ever seeing Earth again, because that's all been ripped away from him. Because he also finds out the wife was dead at that point. he's willing to do that for the sake of the other clone. And then the other clone is coming out saying, no, you need to go back. I'm willing to die for this. I'm willing to die for you to have that chance.
To not gloss over, though, you said the new clone's found out. He finds out because he actually watches the recording. He sees the call, and we see his reaction too, which I think is also a good moment. And I think it makes sense that he's more willing to be kind of like sacrificial, even though he's the young one. One, because he's more like gun-ho and headstrong, because that's the differentiator we've had the entire time they've both been around. But also because he's not spent 3 years longing for home. As far as like his memories are concerned, he just got here in a weird sense, even though that's not entirely true. Whereas the old one who's dying, I think the reason why he wants him to go home, to be the one who gets to go there, is because you've spent 3 years longing for home. You've missed it. We started this movie with saying, oh, I'm desperate to get home. And he's trying to give him that, and then the old one's like, no, like, I'm clearly sick, I'm dying. You need to be the one that goes, right? You put me back out in the buggy, you go and, like, you know, mess shit up on Earth. Like, go and, like, tear this thing down. And that's kind of and we've got this ticking time clock. Every so often we pan over to the timer going down to the ship arriving with the people on it. And notably, when he's about to go, he gets in the little pod, and he's left the other Sam in the buggy. He's got his supplies in the little thing, because this thing he's getting into to go to Earth is not meant for people. It's meant to just be for like sending stuff down to Earth.
It's sending the helium tanks or whatever. It's sending the stuff he's actually hauling down.
But he's made it into a little bunk so he can survive in there for a while. And he's about to go in. He's got like 8 minutes left on the timer, so he's making good time. And then he decides to like pause at the last second. He stops the door from closing, and he runs back to the computer because he realizes he can do something for the next clone. And it actually, what I really like about this is it ties into a line the old clone had at the start of the movie, when he's complaining about the satellite being broken to Gertie when he's getting his hair cut. He says to Gertie, hey, like, tell them to fix that and make it a priority. It doesn't really matter for me because I've only got 2 weeks left, but it's not fair to the next guy. And I love that the new clone effectively has that same idea at the end, even though he's got more context for what it actually means. He effectively redirects one of the mining robots to crash into a pylon so that the live call service is back on, and there's nothing they can do about it. It's a really sweet little last, like, hurrah before he gets into the pod and gets beamed off to Earth.
I really like that moment because I think it's one of the few moments in this movie that feels like it really has tension. Because the rest of the movie, we are getting the clock of like Eliza crew in 15 hours, 13 hours.
It doesn't feel like dangerous yet, though, right? Because most of the movie, it feels pretty. You know, it's more about kind of the sadness of what he's went through and like the reality that they're clones and they probably will never get to go home. But there's no like, you know, threat that's constantly imposing. Yeah. You know.
It doesn't feel like you're ever like right up on the wire. It still feels like you've got time to do whatever. But when he's doing this, you see we've moved from hours to like, I think it's like 5 minutes or 3 minutes. Like he's really rushing against the clock, and they've made it clear if he's found, he will be shot and killed. So I really like those moments there for tension's sake. And then, it's just a feel good moment as well when you see the truck crash into the pylon and then the screen comes up saying live feed available. It's just, it's a good little heartfelt moment.
It's great, although it is the one visual effects moment that I don't like, is when it crashes into the pylon. Just because the dust that kicks up from the crash is just very fake looking. It has that CG dust look to it that just sticks out to me like a sore thumb.
I feel like it was even with the rest of the moon scenes for me. I didn't have as much of a problem with it. The bit that I thought you were talking about is he looks out the window and I think he sees like the ship coming into landing, the emergency one. That looked very fake to me.
I think that felt fine to me in the context of the rest of the moon stuff. I think that impact though was the one time where it felt like everything felt very consistent otherwise. Now, whether you think that looked good or you thought it didn't look that good the whole time, but it felt consistent to me. That moment sort of like was a jolt. It's like if you've got like a graph of like quality in the effects, it felt like just a massive dip for a second at the moment of that impact. But I mean, you know, everyone will feel differently about different effects, I suppose. But I think, you know, the ending with like the pod going to Earth and just hearing some of these radio broadcasts just to sort of indicate that the media is talking about, oh, there's a clone, like, you know, talking about what this company's done, and that's kind of all you get. You just get that little tease, and then it cuts, you know, to the credits.
The last thing, I mean, they talk like media's talking very generally, just explaining the situation, say what's coming down. But the very last voice you hear is what sounds like some conservative radio host saying like, either he's lying and crazy or he's an illegal immigrant. Get rid of him. And I'm like, yeah, that tracks. That's what we do.
Yeah. I'm not saying I don't like it necessarily, but I almost think I would prefer if those news things weren't there. I almost think just a silent shot with the music playing of the pod going to Earth and just leave it completely open. What happens when he gets down there? You know, like I think the openness would be a little bit better for me, if I'm being frank.
No, I think that would be a much more artistic point. I'm sure they tried it. I'm sure they like bounced back and forth between the two and just ended up on this one as a more like uplifting moment. But I think from a more artistic, ambiguous standpoint, not having the audio there would probably be better.
Yeah, it's not a big deal, but it's just I think it'd just be a bit more poignant at the end, and it's still uplifting potentially because it's just like, you just don't know like what happens when he gets down there. So. Turns out that they only pick up these pods out of the ocean once every 3 weeks. He dies of no oxygen. End of story. Now, one day on this show, we will cover Mute, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Unfortunately.
Which is Duncan Jones' terrible movie he did for Netflix. He's actually not made a movie since then. He's currently doing a film that is sci-fi called Rogue Trooper that is in production. It's got a cast and all that, so that'll come eventually. But it's been 7 years at the time of recording since his last movie came out. And it was an absolute stinker, set in the future. And the reason why I'm bringing it up is because there's a little tie-in to Moon. It's set in the same world, and because that movie's so bad, and I can't remember how late in the movie. It's basically just like on a TV, like the court case of like a trial about all this clone stuff. But you see Sam Rockwell in a cameo, like yelling at a hearing about it, and it's just like. But the movie sucks so bad, and I'm like, oh, why are you connecting this to Moon? Stop it! I hate this. Don't leave it ambiguous. Don't tell me any more about Moon. I don't want a sequel to Moon.
I'm curious. Like, you've made me curious for that one sequence, but I don't want to have to sit through the rest of the movie to watch just that shot.
We'll have to do it because we've not done it on Ace, and it has to be done at some point.
All right.
We'll do Source Code
Episode
first.
Episode 400, everybody.
Yeah, maybe. We'll do it in 100 episodes time. We'll do Mute. Oh, it's a stinker. It's not even like conceptually, it's a terrible idea to begin with. And I don't really remember where it goes. I remember Paul Rudd having terrible hair. I remember that.
Oh my, that's really hard to pull off. His hair is usually great.
It's kind of long. So do with that what you will. I mean, my memory's vague. I remember there being some kind of weird, creepy, problematic like element to it, but we'll get to that.
More so than Kevin Spacey?
Well, no, this is just plot, in the movie. It's not a real world thing. So
gotcha.
Right. Okay. Gary himself is not problematic. Just the man behind the microphone is the problematic element here.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, most of the stuff that works in this movie still works very well, right? It's the performance from Sam Rockwell. It's the smart play of the clones and how it reveals how the characters progressed because they're both at different stages of their life, and it tells you something about who they are. You genuinely, I think, feel for them by the time like he's crying to the message to the daughter, and like it just feels hopeless because it was never his life to go back to. And it raises all sorts of comments about capitalism and how people are exploited. This feels like this ultimate exploitation tactic. Like all that stuff I think works really well. Music's phenomenal. I think it looks typically very good. But there's a few cracks there that I don't think bothered me or I noticed as much back in the day, or I've become a bit more accustomed to some of the things this movie does so that they don't feel quite as special inherently. Like the whole even though I like this movie a lot, there is still a part of me that is when he says at the start, "Oh, I'm going home soon," where I'm just kind of like, we just have to get to the point where we know that's not true, because I know it's not true.
Yeah.
And it's just a little bit tiring to have to go through that part of the process. And it's not this movie's fault, but I can't help but have that feeling. That said, what is this movie's fault is the bullshit seeing the visions and the dreams. That stuff is I forgot about it. I think it feels very hackney, and it's just kind of a justification to motivate a couple of things that you could have just had happen by accident and by chance, and I think it'd have been perfectly fine, right? But the crash specifically, I think the crash could have just been an accident. It didn't need. It could. You know what? It doesn't even have to be like a. It could have a reason behind it. We know he's going to get sick. Just have him start to get sick while he's driving, and that's what causes the crash, and it ties into everything else easily.
Yeah, see, that's what I was kind of getting at, is that it either feels like you need to continue these visions on as a byproduct of him getting sicker, of him being like close to death, or you need to not have them at all. And whatever, all this stuff that happens is just because he is getting sick. Even the spilling the water on his hand because he's distracted by that first vision, you could easily have him just like all of a sudden collapse. Like he just gets woozy and he spills water on his arm. Like it would be as simple as that.
Yeah, I mean, not even just zone out and get woozy and not pay attention to his hand, and then go, oh shit, like, you know, my hand's burned, like, you know, and it would be the first sign that something's not right, that he's starting to have these little episodes or whatever. So you really don't need the weird vision. And the thing is, see if it was just like of his wife, it'd be like, okay, that's one thing. He's getting like, you know, dementia or whatever it is, he's getting close to death. But he's having visions of his grown-up daughter, and I get you could argue, oh, this is what he imagines she looks like. But because we actually get to see her later in the movie, it feels like a prophecy, or like he's actually getting some kind of vision, and that just is weird. Yeah. And I don't think they do enough with that to suggest that it's a cool thematic idea of, you know, like, oh, he's somehow connected to the real Sam, and he's getting like a glimpse of the true, you know, reality or whatever.
Yeah, I think I would actually... It would have to restructure the whole movie. But I still don't think I would like the idea of them hitting on this point that there is some low-level shared idea of either a hive mind sort of aspect or a soul, whatever aspect they're trying to really hit on here. Just this idea that they can share some sort of memories beyond the pale of what science can explain.
I'm not sure I would love it if they went full down that path either. I'm just saying that that's kind of what this implies to me, that they're slightly suggesting. And also, I would like Gertie's like face turn to be a little more developed than it is, you know.
I feel like I like how it happens. I really do like Gertie in the way that they developed him, but that's me bringing in my ideas of previous media and how the robot companion that works for the company is always evil. Like this is just a good little pivot on that sort of idea.
Yeah, although we've definitely done they're actually good, like, a lot as well. And I think maybe part of it as well, the whole like little screen with a smiley face that gets happy or sad, depending on what the tone of the conversation is, feels very generic sci-fi to me at this point. I don't know, like, and I think maybe even it did at the time, to be honest, but it feels kind of like, oh, we're trying to be cutesy with it. I don't know. Like, I think that just stylistic or artistic choice just feels a little bit more generic than some of the better ideas in the movie. But I mean, like, you know, these are relatively nitpicky. For the most part. I mean, I think the visions I do dislike, but the movie mostly
but they're still minor in the plot as a whole.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a problem to just disappear because it just kind of points out how like weird they feel in the context of the movie. But at the same time, they disappear, so it's not a problem for the rest of the movie. So it's kind of like a, you know, not a catch-22 per se, but there's definitely two sides to it. So. You know, it's still very good. Like, you know, I don't want to sound negative here. I still had a great time revisiting this. I don't think it's great. That said, though, when this did come out, I remember like being really like struggling at the end of the year of being like, oh, what did I like better, this or District 9? I think now I just know it's District 9 between the two. For me, I think District 9 is just a little bit better in a few key ways that I think is a little bit more exciting and fresh still. But this is still a great movie. And it's probably, you know, the second or third best sci-fi movie of that year, quite, you know, considerably. So, you know.
Yeah, I feel like if we're going back to that metaphor earlier on of this is kind of that gateway stepping stone to more heavier hitting stuff, I feel like District 9 is an alternate path you can take where it's a lot more mainstream in concept, but it also is just so completely different from everything else that was going on at the time that it just feels like its own independent thing. Even nowadays, I feel like the only one that was even close to what District 9 was doing was kind of in the same vein of like the same director. It was Chappie was the only one that got kind of that idea of setting it in that sort of I don't want to say just like slums and urban sort of stuff, but the idea where what happens when we do take this stuff to its logical conclusion, assuming humanity is just going to be the worst about everything.
David, what are you rating Moon out of 10?
I mean, I've spent this entire time singing its praises. I get what you're saying, that it does feel a little bit less special now. I can't remember the first time I watched this, but it's been at least a decade, and I think I've watched it 2 or 3 times since then. But it definitely does feel a little bit less special, a little less unique. Other people have done that, but I do still have this fondness for it, where because it is doing something that feels like it was unique at the time, it feels like they're still kind of testing the waters, seeing what does work, what doesn't work, and I really like the way that it turned out. And I think I have an attachment to these characters. I want to be able to see them succeed in their goals. Overall, it was just a very well-made movie on top of everything else. It doesn't even feel like it was cheap in any aspect. So I think I'm going to land on this one still being an 8.5 for me. It's still a great movie. I would highly suggest anyone who, for some reason, has sat through this and hasn't watched it to go watch it. But it's just a great movie overall.
Yeah, I think for me, I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. And I think at the time, if you'd asked me in 2009 or the few years following that, I'd have slapped a 9 on it. And I just think it's not quite there anymore for me. I think it's still great. 8 is still a great, that's what that number means in my head when I'm rating a movie. 7's good, 8's great, 9's amazing, 10's like all-time favorite, right? That's the scale of that top end. I'll describe the bottom end if you like, everyone, but it's a lot of swearing. So I think, like all the things I've said about it that are good are still very good, right? And there's just a few things that, like, I think irk me a little bit more than they used to. And then the overall feeling of it not being quite as special as it once was. Like, it doesn't feel like, oh, I'm seeing something like truly spectacular in the way that I thought I was maybe back in 2009. So it took a little bit of the edge off in that sense, but still very good. We don't put things into the collection on this show, but it would make the cut still quite happily, is what I'm saying.
No doubt.
So obviously, David's got his homework in a minute. But before we get to that, I'll tell you what we're doing next week on the Atomic Cinema Experiment, as well as tell you about Patreon and all that good stuff. But next week on the show, we are doing Save the Green Planet, which is a Korean movie, which is one that I happen to quite like. And it's been a long time since I've seen it, admittedly. But the reason why we're doing that now is because very soon there is a loose reboot or remake of it. An English language version coming out starring Emma Stone, it's got a different name. It's called Begonia, which I assume that's how you pronounce that. Begonia.
Sure. I have no idea.
Maybe it's a soft G. Begonia. No, that doesn't sound right.
No, that sounds worse.
That sounds much worse. But yeah, that's coming up in the near future. It's actually a little unclear if we'll do that when it's in theaters, because we still don't really know what the UK release date is, so we may have to wait until early next year. But because that's out soon, it made good sense to slot in the original Save the Green Planet, and I'm excited to get to that one. So I'm looking forward to talking about that next week. I'm looking forward to watching it again, just in general, to be honest. It's been a long time. Yeah. So that should be cool. And of course, yes, you can support the show over at patreon.com/MelFuzzTV. It supports this show as well as Screams After Midnight, Collector's Cut, which is the other show I do with David, where we go through seasons. 70s Thriller season just wrapped up recently, and we're doing a season on early films by Sidney Lumet. So if that sounds like fun, check out those. But you get bonuses for all these shows in one form or another, and then one of the main bonuses we do on Patreon and YouTube membership is a monthly show called Extra Reels, where we review some of the worst movies ever made. So if you want to hear us get mad, pull our hair out, well, I can't do that anymore, but David might do it, and swear a lot, then you could get that on Extra Reels. So
Just one or two at a time.
Yeah, very good. So, go support us, like, subscribe, all that usual stuff. But David wraps up the ace every week with a homework movie, and he goes back and watches a movie from before he joined the show. So not from the past 80 or so episodes, but from the previous 220, give or take. Yes. Although he's now done about 80 of them, so he will run out at some point, and he'll be done with the homework. But we've got a while to go yet.
God. Cannot wait. Yeah.
What's this week's movies?
So this one was entirely on a whim as I was reading through trivia of Moon. Apparently, on one of the shelves hidden in the background as a little Easter egg, is his food supply, which was labeled as Soylent.
Ah.
Yes. So I decided to do the
She watched Jurassic Park.
film. Jurassic Park, yep. Soylent Green. Charlton Heston, a couple other people. It's just one of those weird ones to talk about because obviously a big part of it is it's a mystery. It is solving a crime.
But you knew what it was before you started.
Right. And I feel like most people know what it is. I feel like this is one of those things where it's like, yes, Luke and Darth Vader are related. This is one of those things where it's like all of culture knows what's up.
Yeah, well, I feel like it's not as widespread as that, but I think if you watched a certain era of The Simpsons, they definitely made a big deal about yelling it at one point, and I think that's where a lot of people learned it. Because not a lot of people are going back to watch this, 70s movie? I think.
Yeah, 70s. It's so, I mean, just focusing on whether or not I liked it or anything like that. I did. I think it is a very well done movie in that it is set in a dystopia, the far off future of 2022. And, you know,
Right.
it's a...
Actually, did we do that in 2022 on the show?
I think you did.
Yeah,
I think you
okay.
specifically picked it for that.
I think that was an intentional choice at the time. That sounds right. I'd forgotten that, but that sounds right.
Yeah. But no, it's one of those ones where I like the way that they do the dystopia, because so many times when there's a dystopia, it still feels very safe in a lot of ways. It still feels very much of like, oh, well, it's you know, we've had societal collapse or whatever, and everyone's just like roving gangs or whatever. But this one feels very realistic, where there are still hyper rich people. There is all of this idea that we have run out of resources just across the board because of massive climate change and stuff like that. It's just a lot of stuff that feels very realistic when you look at it through a modern lens. It feels like they thought this through. And a big part of it is overpopulation, which kind of leads into the ending of that. But I think what gets me the most about it is that, yes, all that stuff is happening, but it's the backdrop. It's not the focus of the story, but they really flesh it out well through how the story is told. Even something as simple as Charlton Heston going down the stairs from his apartment or wherever he's staying, he has to like leap over all of these bodies that are just sleeping on the stairs of his place. And it feels so natural to him as he does it, because he's had to do this every single day for pretty much his whole life. So little touches like that really flesh out the world. If I have one major critique, it's that there is a crime that's committed early on in this movie, a murder, and then we transition into feeling like there's this larger conspiracy, but Charlton Heston doesn't actually solve the conspiracy. Some other side character, and I won't spoil who, but some other side character just basically does it for him, and then he goes out and like, oh, okay, I just have to prove that then. That felt a little bit weird structure-wise, but everything else, I think it does a great job of just fleshing out this world, making it feel like a dire place to live, but still making it feel realistic because of that. So, yeah, I'd say this is easily a very well-made film. Because of the structural problems, I was a little bit iffy on the overarching plot. It did feel a bit weak in spaces, but I'd easily slap this one with a 7.5. No doubt.
Okay. You sound like, I think I was a little more negative than you. Like, not super negative, but I don't think I was as positive as that. I remember being the negative Nancy on that one.
Yeah. Well, Tara gave it a 9. You gave it a 7. So.
Yeah. That's not much lower. Yeah. 9. Yeah. Yeah. Reason why she's not around anymore, folks. So thank you very much for joining, everyone. We do appreciate it. Of course, we appreciate everyone who's already supporting us. Thanks for joining, and hopefully you enjoyed the conversation. But we'll see you next time for Save the Green Planet and beyond. So thank you very much. We'll see you next time. Keep watching science fiction and computer at Salsa.